Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Rob and we are DURC. Today we are going to take a look at how to change your steering servo. This is specific to the FTX Bugsta, which is our little crawler project, but the procedure is going to be very similar for a lot of different RC cars. It's just your steering servo, which is here, might just be mounted in a different position, like on a crawler it may be uprighted towards the front, in things like your armor outcasts and things like that. Again, it'll be kind of in an aluminium servo mounted vertically. But fundamentally, it's the same kind of thing. What you'll find is you'll have your steering arm by here, which is just screwed into the actual arm that goes onto the servo, and then you've got your screw on the linkage here, and then you've got 4 screws that hold the actual servo in place. That's generally the same on most RC cars. Then obviously you've got your wiring, which will be going to channel 1 on the receiver, which hopefully you can see that there. So it's going to be this one here, okay? And obviously you always need to make sure you get the polarity correct. So if you look on the actual receiver, you can just about see that you've got the minus. Let me see if I can show you that. See how good I am with my scientific pointer. So there's your minus. So obviously that's saying that this side is negative. So you've got your black, which is again is normally the case on most wires, or brown, but your black is your negative, so obviously that needs to be on this side, okay? And that's going to be channel 1. So you're going to basically unplug channel 1. Normally you have a zip tie or something holding your wiring on, so cut that zip tie, and then we're basically then going to get the 4 screws out, undo the linkage, take the arm off, and then we'll fit the new servo. I'm actually just going to refit the same servo because I've already actually thrown the old servo in the bin because it was absolute junk and it got ruined. The other thing you'll find as well on a lot of cars, especially your bashers and things like that, is this is your servo saver as well. So this is meant to, obviously on impact, twist so that the force doesn't go to the servo. But because we've turned this into a crawler, the spring in the servo saver was actually too soft. So when you increase the power on the steering servo, like a standard in this one is a 3 kilogram servo, we've now changed it to a 21 kilogram servo. We did have one of those cheap Amazon DS servos which was maybe 25 kilograms, but after going in the water a few times it got full of water and completely failed on us. So we've gone for an Etronix 21 kilogram servo this time. But anyway, what I've done is you can get aluminium servo savers, and on a lot of models you can get stiffer springs, but what I've actually done, because we love a bit of DIY bodgery, I've just actually super glued the servo saver together. I wouldn't say I recommend it, definitely not on a basher, but because we were turning this into a crawler project, normally on a crawler you may just have like a solid linkage. So basically, just super glue that together so that now when it turns, you get, all of the force of the steering servo, as opposed to that servo saver just twisting, and then you basically lose a load of power. So we will just whip out these screws, get the zip tie off, unplug it, then I'll just show you the process of them fitting the new servo, and then we'll plug it all in and check it works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo this screw here from the linkage. Everything's a bit crusty on this car because we've used it in the seawater, and so yeah, it's all a bit worse for wear, to be honest. But so we'll undo this linkage here as well, this screw, and then our arm comes off. We'll get that off, put that to one side. We'll leave the arm on there for the moment, okay? But we're just going to undo these 4 screws here. So we're just going to turn the steering slightly, because now it's completely free. We can just turn it. And you're going to get our Allen key in there. Do that one, and then undo the last one. Okay, quite often you will find as well you'll have these little washers, which hopefully you can see that on the screws as well, or you might have a little rubber washer on the underside of the steering servo. So again, just make sure you reuse that. And another thing you want to check as well, when you get your replacement servo, especially for cars like this where they have a center drive shaft, you just want to make sure that the new servo you get isn't any deeper than the old servo, because otherwise it might foul on the drive shaft. But if that is the case, you could always just put some spaces in, and if you have the room to do so, you could just move it forward a tiny bit. But obviously it depends on what you've got space-wise. Okay, we'll get our snips, and we will snip zip tie. Just obviously make sure you don't cut any wires. Okay, then we're going to unplug channel 1. Okay, so that's unplugged. And we're just going to turn our steering back so we can get it out. And then we're just going to pop the steering servo out. Now it comes, nice and easy. Okay, now obviously what you would then do is you would take your arm off. So what we would do is we would get our arm like that. Okay, and then get your crosshead screwdriver or whatever it may be. Just hold it in place, undo it, take your screw out. Okay, pull the screw, and then just slide your arm off. Job done. Okay, and then to put your new arm on, you'd basically want to put it on so it's in the center. Okay, so just line it up, don't force it, it should just slide on nice and easily, just like that. Okay, and you want to make sure it's central. What is also a good idea sometimes before you actually screw it all back in, get your servo, plug it in, turn it on, and just make sure that that is central. Which as soon as you turn it on, it'll center itself, obviously based on where you've got as your neutral point and everything on your receiver. So it is worth just doing that sometimes. I've already done that, so I know this is center. So I shall get my screw, put the screw back in, and screw it back in. And again, just hold it in place when you screw it in, just so it doesn't try to twist at all. Okay, there we go. So we've got our new steering servo, so we're going to pop that in. So we're just going to stick it over here, slide it over, drop it in. Okay, so now it's in there. We'll sort all our wiring out and everything in a moment. So now we're going to put our 4 screws back in to mount the servo. Get our first screw, and then we're just going to pop it in. Doesn't matter which one you start with, whatever's easier. And just pop that in there. Obviously just make sure they go in gently as you're screwing them in, because obviously you don't want to thread it because it's just going into plastic. It should be nice and easy to get them in, nice and smooth. Next screw. Should feel its seat as it goes in. Okay, just doing it so nice and snug. Okay. And then the next one. Job done. Okay, so that's our servo now mounted with our 4 screws. So the next thing we're going to want to do is put our arm back on. Okay, so we're going to screw that into. Now what you want to take a note of is when you take it apart, just make a note of which hole it was in. It's normally easy to tell because you can normally see which one's basically got the bigger hole. Likewise for the actual arm here, just make sure you can see which one it came out of. But again, you'll normally see because it's the bigger hole. So we're just going to get that, pop that in there. Screw that in. Okay, and we've got our last screw. Pop the link between here. Turn our steering back so it's central, centered, is what I want to say. And then pop your last screw back in your linkage. Okay, so now that's all screwed in. And obviously you're going to want to do a zip tie and everything and tidy this up. But what we'll do, let's plug this into channel 1. So remembering that our black is going to the negative, which on this ESC is on this side over here. So I'm just going to pop it in gently, make sure you don't bend any of your pins or anything. It's popped in. Grab a battery with obviously the right connector, which for this one is a Dean's. Plug it in. Get your transmitter, which for this Bugsta is a Etronix little 2-channel jobby. Turn it on, switch on your car. You should hear it. And then just do your steering. Just to recap, we've got our 4 screws to mount the steering servo. We've got our screw for the actual servo arm. We've got our screw there and our screw there for the steering linkage. Then you've got your cable for your steering servo itself. Black to negative. And then basically we'll just tidy up these wires and then it'll be job done. Okay, so we're just gonna get a zip tie, cable tie, whatever you want to call it. Just tidy up your wires, get obviously your motor wire as well, and then get your steering servo wire. You don't want to pull it too tight, but just so it's nice and snug and tidy, something like that. Get your zip tie, pop it through. Okay, just before you tighten it, just make sure you're happy with where your wires are. Trim your zip tie off. There you go, job done. Now your steering servo is installed. Cable's all nice and tidy. Obviously you can do a better job than that if you want to, you know, tidy it all up, zip tie it onto the chassis and everything if you want to, but basically it's done, plugged in. 4 screws are in for mounts, steering linkage is on. We didn't take off the saver or anything like that, so that's all good. And then we're good to go ripping again. So we're going to take this thing crawling. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.